Hello, everyone. I appreciate, first of all, that you all take time to attend this webinar. So I'll be keeping the intro short because I believe that you are not here to listen about boring intros, but it's a custom. So I'm Naveed Shahzad. I'm a Ruby on Rails expert. I'm working in industry since 12 plus years. I graduated in 2007 from Punjab University College of Information Technology, and since then I am working in different companies, naming Confiz, Vericall, Ado AI, KeepTruckin, and also various government organizations like Information Technology University and Punjab IT Board. So yeah, so as I said, I will keep the intro short. So that's about the intro. And I want to actually make your upcoming 30 minutes super valuable and productive. So let's jump to question of the day, that is test-driven development. So today I am here to tell you about disadvantages of test-driven development. Yes, actually, it's not a slip of tongue. I am actually going to convince you to not use TDD. I have very strong arguments for this topic. For example, why should one would pay developers to write code, to write tests? Because companies actually want developers to write code, so they don't get paid to write tests. The first reality of business. And then the other thing is definitely test driven development makes development teams less productive. Developers are spending a lot of time on writing tests, and that would delay actual features. And what's the point of having a QA team if we if some company want to have this culture of test driven development? And so that's like actually whenever in my early career I was asked to write test cases, I came up with all these kind of arguments and often succeed. Actually, am I used to use these arguments. That's why I am able to present them in front of you at the moment. So you can see words, when articulated in a particular way, have the power to change the mind of the listener. So and I use these words to like change the mind of my manager sometimes, to not go to convince a client to buy time for writing TDD, and that would like save us from a hassle, us developers from a hassle of uh, uh, design better. Uh, any learning is painful at the start, but when you learn that, only then you can feel the joy of it. So the more I started to learn about test-driven development, the more admirer of the practice I became. TDD is not just a technology; it's the name of a routine, a practice. I want you all know about a very interesting fact, that we all are in haste. We want to develop a feature really quick and move that to production in no time, and uh, we even want to test it in production. Like that's usually how I have seen the development culture, in specifically in Pakistan, that we usually sometimes even deploy the code and then we're testing that in production. So because of that haste, we usually not follow test driven development. So to make the development quick, the first thing that comes in a developer mind is to cut the test, like writing of the unit testing time. So don't write unit test and develop fast. That's the actually mindset. Um, so usually when we try to do something, we have two options: an easy option and a difficult option. And I'll tell you one thing: that usually the easy one is not the right choice. Similar is the case with TDD. Choosing not to go for TDD seems easier initially. Uh, Today we will see how this is not the right choice. So let me share 3 golden rules with you all if you want to start participating TDD, practicing TDD. These rules are to be religiously followed. So these golden rules are, you can see on the screen. So number one thing, you are not allowed to write any production code unless it is to make a failing unit test pass. So simply this means we need to write a test case first, and that would actually spec out whatever the functionality we want to achieve, whether there is no code, like that doesn't matter. So I will explain this just right after that with an example, but for now, just the initial thing is this primitive. And the second rule is you're not allowed to write any more of a unit test that is sufficient to fail. So this means that we need to write minimum, like even while writing test, we don't need to write the whole application's test at once. We just need to write one specific unit test, one specific functionality of the application, and we need to write the test for that. So and third thing is you're not allowed to write any more production code than is sufficient to pass the like one failing unit test. So we will only write code in test-driven development. A developer would only write test code to pass the failing test. There is no other purpose of writing code. So that means to write any piece of code, you need to have a failing test first that it will pass. So let's clear a few ambiguities that are in our mind with respect to test-driven development. So one major concern is TDD or test-driven development replaces QA teams, or if we write large unit tests, then we don't need QA. That is a wrong perception. So unit test, basic purpose of unit test is to automate the build process of any application. It means that like if your test suite runs fine and the coverage is complete. I'll let you know about the coverage later. I hope many of you know that in advance, but for those who don't know it, I'll let you know. Then like you can confidently say that at least your build will not break the system. So that's the outcome. That's the product of it, basically a full covered test suite. So it could still have some logical errors, but at least there won't be exceptions. So still QA is the owner of product and business domain. They will be like verifying that and things like that. But what developers would be confident about, what platform engineers would be confident about, that the build for which all of the test cases are passing, that won't break the system, that won't raise any new exceptions. So yeah, and the other misconception is some people say that, okay, what if we write code first and then write unit test and then cover it 100%, then even if you cover after writing unit test, like you achieve the coverage of 100%, even then that is not test-driven development. In test-driven development, you need to remember the 3 golden rules. So these 3 golden rules are actually the primitive of test-driven development. You need to memorize that. You need to like know that, like ABC in English language. You need to memorize words in order to make sentences, in order to make essays, in order to generate content. So it's likewise, these are the 3 primitive rules. Like these need to be memorized, they need to be religiously followed. Okay, so let's come to coverage. So coverage means basically it's very simple. It's the amount of code covered by test cases. So there are different ways through which we can measure. We have tools for that, and different languages, different framework in which we can measure uh, uh, the coverage of that a test case test suite is providing. So now let's jump to an quick example. Okay, so there's a very basic requirement. I want to basically explain this concept to you with a very simple example. And the example is, let's assume an organization that determines the salary of an employee as a function of their age. So yeah, like that's a made up requirement, definitely. So but please don't find faults in the requirement, and try to understand the concept of test driven development. So the company has a weird rule that the younger the employee, the higher is the salary. So because they think that young people can work more and old people like me are not productive, so that's why. uh, so when we like want to model this function, like a developer need to implement this function, which will take age as an input and return the salary of the employee as an output. So the company has given some rule as well, uh, if the employee's age is 20 to 30 years, their salary will be 100K. If their age is 31 to 40 years, their salary will be 80K. And similarly, for 41 to 50 years, their salary will be 60,000. And for 50 above, salary will even be 40,000. So old people have lesser need because their children are earning already. So might be such organization does not exist, but anyways, we want to understand our concept. So what will we do, like, to model that? Should we write code first? No, let's write some test for this specification first, as per like our test driven development paradigm. So I have initially I have defined a test function that would call like a get salary method and pass an age to that, and that would return a salary. That's the expectation. So such kind of statement, we call these in test unit test domain assertions. So this is a simple method. This is taking a specific input and expecting a specific output. So as per the company rules, if the employee's age is 23, their salary need to be 100,000. Uh, so now once we have this test case, if we will run this test method, it will give an exception that get salary method not defined, of course. So to pass that test, we're gonna write this get salary method, and it will take age, and then it's checking that if age dot between this, then it's 100,000, and similarly, that's pretty simple method. I don't need to explain that even. So we find the point is we wrote this method in order to pass the failing test. So if we analyze a bit, so when we call that method, only the lines that are in green, these lines will be run by the test case. So, or we can say touched by the test case. So if we see that it's the first line, second line, third line, and then no else if would run, and the last two ends would run. So now we want to calculate the coverage that this test case is providing us. So only 5 out of 12 lines are running. So it means that it's 5 by 12, only 21% test coverage we have at the moment. And so as you can clearly see, we badly violate our 3 golden rules of test-driven development while writing this code. So like any of you can think or comment that what actually we violated here, but I'll explain to you nonetheless. So number one thing was fine. We wrote a failing test that was as per these three golden rules. But the second thing was not right. Like, we need to write only the code to pass that one test case. And actually we write a detailed function that is even doing more things that the test case was expecting. So we wrote one unit test, which was fine. But when we write code, we actually write more code than was sufficient to pass the unit test case. So we lose coverage here. That's why. And that's why we are no more following test-driven development right in the start. So let's change our strategy. And now we write, like, we change the definition of get salary method and write only this rule, that because the input is 23, so that is covered by this assertion, this condition, that if age start between 20 and 30, then salary is 100K. So now you can see that its coverage becomes 100%. Every line of code is being run by test. Now let's extend our test case and give it another input. So now our test case is asserting two things. It's asserting salary for the age 23 employee, and then also asserting for the age 33. Now again, when we run this test, this will fail because our program at the moment cannot handle 33. So for this, we need to extend our function and add the implementation only to pass the failing test. No more code than that. So as you can see, we have added another condition that is covering the second test case as well. And again, we have the 100% coverage. And the third thing is, again, we added the assertion for third rule. And again, we extended our code to pass that third condition as well. And still we have the 100% coverage. And then we added the fourth assertion in our test. And here we have the fourth assertion code for passing the fourth failing test as well here in the our test our actual code which will refer to as production code as per those three golden rules. So now, as we have known about the basic philosophy of test-driven development, so the time is short, so I want to give you another flavor of hands-on. So let's get our hands dirty with the code of Rails application now, and we'll try to write our first test case of a Rails model using TDD paradigm. This will be a simple demo, but at least this will help you how we set up the test environment in Rails, and then how we are able to write test cases. So let me. So first command, let the magic of Rails begin now. You will see if you some of you are not Rails developers, so you will see how Rails actually, how quickly it helps you to build an application, a working application. So this is command that generates basic folder structure and for a Rails application, and it accepts different arguments that I am passing here. So we need to build actually a simple to-do application that will have simple to-do entries, and each to-do entry will have a signing and a task, and both are text fields. So that this is a very simple requirement. So I will explain this command a bit. As you can see, it says Rails new. This is a command for generating a new application. Then to do app is the application's name. And then right at the time of creating an application, we can tell it that which database we're going to use. So it says database is equal to MySQL. And then we can tell it about test framework as well. I think that is not supported at the moment, but that was supported actually in older versions. So and skip bundle. and skip bundle basically gem Rails basically maintains its libraries via a mechanism that we call bundler. Bundler is another software that basically manages libraries dependencies that the application have. So initially, by default, if we do Rails new, it installs the default gems as well. But I want to skip that because I want a bit customization in that for test setup. And then skip keeps is for it generates some keep files and on the Mac OS specifically, because otherwise it considers the folder empty and does not commit in Git. And similarly skip test unit, so I don't want to generate default test unit file. So Rails have a built-in framework of test case writing, and also there is another widely adopted library that we call RSpec, and we are going to use RSpec in this tutorial. So that's why I skipped the generation of basic test unit files. Okay, so this simple test command we gonna run. So I hope everyone can see my screen. So, and here you go. We have generated a to-do app folder that has all this folder structure. So we went into that. And the second thing is we need to open the gem file, and in that gem file we need to paste these lines. Primarily we only need RSpec Rails from these gems at the moment, but these are actually you can find these gems in a general setting in a test case of any gem file of any Rails application. So I'll take that. Sorry. I'll take that and go to code, open gem file. So we already have a test block, but I'll override it simply. So cool. Okay, so we have got this, and the next thing we need to do is bundle install. And so bundle install is a command that basically install all the dependencies that are found in the gem file. So that is not the primary topic of this webinar today. So I am just like keeping that at surface, but giving you at least sufficient knowledge so that if someone wants to set up test or a Rails application, they can do that. So I am also passing this J7 option. This is just like simple bundle install would do the job as well, but this is just run multiple processes, 7 processes, and it will be a little quicker to build the libraries. So it's building the libraries for this application. Cool. So that is done. Now the next step is to run the RSpec generator that will generate the required RSpec files. You can find these documentation on RSpec Gems GitHub page as well. So Rails generate, G is the short as well, RSpec install. So here we go. It generates some basic files, some helpers, a spec folder, and a .rspec file for certain settings. So, and next thing is again a Rails gift that we can create databases real quick. Like first, I need to just configure my database.yaml file. So it has some default settings. I need to provide the DB password, and my local host is not supported because of Dockerized setup. So I need to provide the URL, and here I would be writing my DB password. Oh, that gone live, but no problem. That's development DB. So, okay, the command will run is db colon create. As you can see on the command line, this probably I have already created this application previously sometime, like similar config file. So that's why these DBs already exist. If this won't exist, this will create this. So that's simple. So once this is done, now okay, we can I can still show you, demonstrate you the creation of these DBs. So we can do simply rate DB drop. This will drop all the databases and then create. Okay, here we see. So after that, we now the first thing we need to do is we are going to write a model in Rails, and that basically Rails has models to interact with database. And for first thing, to build our data model, we need to create a table and a model. So the first test that I'm gonna write is that's why about a model. So instead of going and generating the model first, I'm going to generate the test for the model first. So we're gonna use a Rails generator here. Again, we will be using extensively power of Rails wherever we can. So Rails generate RSpec model and name of the model to do item. So I'm sorry. So that's generated a file. As you can see, if we open that file, so that has some basic structure that say that it would describe this class. This will be model class, and at the moment it has a line pending because no test is added. If we write that, that will raise an exception. So we will remove that, and we're gonna write some test, real test here. So this is the test block. Okay, so this is a very simple test. Actually, initially we even don't need this. Yeah. So we just remove the pending and we'll run our specs. So you will see that will fail. And because we say that compile errors are errors, so it raises uninitialized constant to do item. So now we will write some code to pass this test case, and that code will be generating actually migration and then model. So for that, now we'll generate a model, and command for that is Rails G model, and the name of the model, and its attributes. So one attribute name would be task, and the other attribute name would be assignee. And because we have already added a test case for that, so we don't want to generate test file for it, so we say no test framework. And this will create two files, a migration. So migrations in Rails are for database creation. These are the database definition file, we can say, and one model file. So we'll just quickly go check migration file that if it's doing everything good. So yeah, it's fine. Now what we'll do is we do rake tb colon migrate. This will actually run this migration file and create the database table to do items. Here we go. So now we have the database table and the model. So now if we'll run the same test that was failing previously, we'll see that it will start like it will stop raising exception. So that's the first success of in the course of writing our application. So after that, we're gonna write some more like expectation in our test case. So first expectation would be about the columns in the database table. So I would just copy this and open the spec file. Okay, so this is a very simple test case. What it do is it say that it have task and assignee columns and few other columns, of course. So what it's doing is it's comparing columns in the database to a hard code provided list that we know columns should be equal to. So this is an expectation. This is how like we write expectations in Rails. This is a very simple kind of expectation. We definitely write way complex than that, but this is just to set up the basic environment and get you a flavor of what testing with Rails would be like. So as you see that we have written this expectation, and this would be so if we'll run again our spec, so we'll see that our spec would be passing. And this is like how we write test in Rails. And like we test could be of various nature or very complex nature. We can check that if an email gets sent or not, if an email has certain content or not, if an SMS message gets sent or not, if a file is uploaded to S3 or not, if a request to say upload a file to S3 is successful or not. So there are all different kind of things that you can do. We need to like generate seed data or fixture data, we can say, for test. So for this you apply different techniques, but the main thing is to have the intention of writing test-driven development, to know about this and to have a belief that this is not an alien thing. Everyone can do it if they practice it, and this is really a good practice. This will help write very good integrated code that is easy to automate, easy to build, and the developer have more confidence on. So we have a few popular gems for testing included, but not limited to, definitely. Rails has its own test framework as well. And there is another widely adopted library that's called RSpec Rails that we are using at the moment. And there is another gem mentioned, FactoryBot Rails. So this is a Rails version of a gem FactoryBot, which is used to generate mock data. And then again, another gem is Faker. Faker basically helps to write to generate mock data using factory girl, and also on various it has various use cases. For example, it can generate a lot of random usernames, a lot of random emails, a lot of random mobile numbers, kind of things. So again, there is a gem shoulda that basically extends basic RSpec matchers with some new matchers that can be used in model verifications, kind of relationship verifications like has many, belongs to, and validations verifications and things like that. Then we have a gem simple curve. So you remember we talked about coverage. So to measure the coverage, this simple curve is used. And then we have a gem VCR and fake web, two gems. So these both are used for remote web testing. So if you run a test with, for example, S3, and so one time what we'll do is we'll run it with actual internet, and what it will do is it will record the request and response, that whatever the parameters would get sent in request and the response came from the server, it will save that. And for the rest of test cases to run on production, it will just be using those saved responses to it will enhance both save it will save time to run to execute the test, as well as it will make the test more stable and less error prone, because there is no actual network traffic would be involved when it will be running in production. So yeah, that's it. Like in this short intro, that's all I could have compiled. I was like thinking a lot what to include, what to not. I could have gone very complex in this short time as well, but my main focus was to be simple and to mainly deliver the concept to everybody. So experts would already understand it, but definitely it's the junior one or the beginners or the mid-level ones. I hope it will be helpful for those. So if you have any questions, please drop those in the comments. Try back to you. Okay, so the most fun question is the test case 100% right. We need and well-defined specs requirements before we start. Yeah, of course. So that's about the practice. So definitely, if you don't know how to write test cases, initially you need to do some practice. And initially you would write test cases that won't be actually 100% correct, and will be some not covering some cases. But once you would be in the practice, gradually you will improve, and your exercise actually make you perfect and expert in that field. And there is no magic for that. Age less than 20 counts in coverage. No, because we are not writing code for it. If there would have been a statement, for example, if age is less than 20, then that would have counted coverage. So coverage would only count code that is written. It won't count the such kind of things, so mathematical things. So Fahad asked, which is most popular among the community? RSpec, definitely. I would also like to mention another very popular gem, Capybara. So the right now what test we wrote is just a backend test. So if someone want to write front-end test like browser testing, like if we go like to this field, fill in this email and click this button, then we redirect to this page, these kind of things, and a certain element is showing on page or not, or JavaScript is loading on page or not. So these kind of testing, there's a very good gem, Capybara. So after that, there's some buttering, and please zoom out your screen a little more visible. Oh, sorry, I just read that. So sorry for hard to answer, but to give 100% coverage is the best thing to do. Yeah, I agree. So thanks so much, guys, for participating in the comment section. This video will be recorded and will be available on RubyConf's Instagram, and RubyConf's Instagram, and other social media accounts. So thank you for tuning in. Video will be available on your YouTube and Facebook. You guys can leave question, comments. Even I will try to respond by my next in my next session. And there would be more sessions to come with more detailed discussions in the field of backend development in general. So stay tuned and keep watching, keep following RubyConf. Thanks so much. And please join RubyConf group and hit like on the page. So I'm ending the session. Thanks so much.